Greetings, everyone. Shim here, bringing you my top 6 things that need to get changed in Forza Motorsport 8. I've been playing this game since early access launched on Thursday, October 5th, and I gotta say, I've really been enjoying Motorsport 8 as a whole. But there are a few glaring issues that I want to address in this video that I talked about in my review of the game that I posted earlier this last weekend. And I want to just highlight those 6 main things that I have issues with and hoping to get changed in the near future. So, without further ado, this is my top 6 things that need to get changed in Forza Motorsport 8. The first thing is wet weather. I think the wet weather in this game needs a complete overhaul. Right now, when there is rain in the game, all you can see is some rain on the windshield of your car. You can see some rain pooling on the tracks, but that actually doesn't cause your car to skid out on those spots. That rain is just cosmetic. There aren't any wet spots on the track. And overall, I just think the wet weather physics in this game are a little bit scuffed at the current point. I think also, along with the wet weather changes, we need to have some sort of radar system because right now I feel like we don't get a really good idea of whether the weather is going to change. I feel like sometimes the weather can be a little bit confusing to figure out what the race is going to be. It just kind of automatically puts your tires to wet tires if there's going to be rain, but that's a whole nother thing because the wet tires aren't usually the best tires to use for a full race in the wet because they die in like 3 to 4 laps. They're basically worthless and they don't really provide much time gained per lap when compared to the slick tires. I think slick tires work way too well in the wet. They need to be nerfed substantially, and wet tires don't last nearly as long as I think they should. They only last as long as soft tires right now in the dry. So I think just overall, the wet weather in this game needs a complete rework to make it feel more dynamic and give us more information on the weather in the game. Now, number 2 is I think that the race strategies and tire degradation in this game needs to be adjusted a bit. Now, this may be up for debate, but I think tires fall off far too quickly within the game during the multiplayer races, even within the single player, but generally the races in single player aren't long enough for race strategy to really play into your game. But I think race strategy needs to be edited a little bit. Right now, I feel like tires do not last nearly as long as they should. Soft tires only last really realistically about 3 to 4 laps depending on the circuit and depending on the conditions, and that isn't even long enough for the short races in the game. And there are even situations where a short race, which usually a medium tire should be able to last a full short race, there are situations where the medium tire does not last for a whole short race. And I think we need to at least have maybe the race lengths adjusted so that that's the case, or something, because right now it just doesn't really make a lot of sense with how long the races are, whether you can use mediums for the whole race, whether you need to use hards for the race. Sure, you could say you need to figure that out before you get into the race, but right now it's just really confusing. With most tracks, it's being okay to have like a medium for a short race, but other tracks it's not, just because of how many laps there are for that race. I don't know. I think there needs to be a bit of an edit for that just to make it more clear. And along with that race strategy, I think we need to have some sort of graphic or notification to see whether a pit stop is needed to complete the race. Right now, I have no idea if pit stops are mandatory still for medium length races in the GT series or in the GTX series. Generally, in the GTX series, your tires are going to die before the end of the race, so a pit stop is necessary there because everyone's on stock tires. Everyone will need to make a pit stop. But for the GT series, I'm not sure if we can just let a hard tire run until the end of the race and not make a pit stop. There's no indication that I can see of whether we need to make a pit stop or not. So I think there needs to be one, I think tires need to last longer. And two, I think there needs to be a better indication of whether a pit stop is mandatory or not. And along with that, a small thing, I think when you are making a pit stop, I think it should be easier to add fuel into your car. Right now, you can only add 10, 20, 30% on up to 100% worth of fuel into the car. And that makes it a little bit difficult to be very precise with how much fuel you put in the car. I just think there needs to be maybe a more streamlined way or a more easy to understand way, because right now it doesn't really make sense to me. And there's not enough time to look at the options for me to get a good idea, because generally the pit stops are very quickly and you only have a certain amount of time to make the choice for fuel. So race strategy as a whole there, I think needs to be updated a bit and needs to be adjusted just to make it feel a little bit better, things to last a little longer, but also to provide clarity to us when we are driving. The next thing I want to discuss is the skill rating and safety rating. I think overall, the skill and safety rating is a great addition to this game, and I think they implemented fairly decently. But I would like to see more notifications on the changes that your safety rating and driver rating go through. And I would also like to see the safety rating and driver rating of all the other drivers in my lobby when I am racing. Right now, none of that information is easy to see, and even your own safety rating and driver rating is hidden behind a tab in the multiplayer screen. I think that information needs to come front and center and be on the multiplayer screen by default. I think we need to always be able to see that. I think there needs to be some clarity as to how much our driver and safety rating changes after every race, because right now it's just a matter of us trying to remember what it was before the race and look at it after the race. I would love to see like a results page where it shows the increase or decrease in our skill or safety rating throughout a race or after a race. And I also would love to see that information for everyone else, because right now I don't know if the driver next to me is going to race clean or how fast they are. I only know what their qualifying time is, and that generally isn't always the best indicator because people can have bad qualifying laps. So I would just love to see more clarity there on not only my driver and safety rating, but others as well on track. Speaking of multiplayer as a whole, though, I would like to see some more options in the multiplayer race section. Right now, we have 3 spec series and 2 open series to participate in. Yes, we are in early access still, and that could change, but I would love to see some daily races being added, as well as some league or constructor championships, so that we have something to come back to every week and something where we're getting points that go to an overall championship for. Because right now, all we are getting is, the series races and the GT, TC, the special series of racing championships. That's what we're seeing right now. And the only thing that's increasing or decreasing is our skill rating and our safety rating. I would love to see something with a little bit more stakes, something that we can come back every week and attempt to, get more points for our constructor, for our team, whatever it may be. Just something to provide more replayability. And I think the constructor or league racing, as well as a daily race option, would be very beneficial. And talking a little bit more about the multiplayer, I think the GT series really needs an overhaul of the cars that are in it. I talked about this in my review, but oh my goodness, the Ultima race car and the V8 supercars do not belong in the GT series. In my opinion, I'm pretty sure most people would agree with me in that sentiment though. Please take out the V8 supercars. Please take out the Ultima race car. Make it its own series. They do not belong in the GT series, in my opinion. Moving on to the penalty system in the game, while I think the penalty system does a really great job with off tracks, and I really don't have any issues with how it handles off tracks within the game, I think the contact penalties within the game do need some rework. I've had multiple circumstances within the game so far where I have barely touched someone or I've been bumped into someone from behind and I get a penalty for no reason really. I haven't done anything wrong. I got bumped into somebody or I'm just rubbing doors with the guy next to me and I get a penalty for that for avoidable contact. Contact is an inevitability sometimes within racing. And while I would love to see people who punt others into the barrier, I would love to see them get punished. It doesn't make sense that people who are victims of the bumping, it doesn't make sense for them to get punished as well. So I think that just needs some fine tuning at this point. I think there's definitely ways that Turn 10 can edit and change the penalty system, especially when it comes to collisions. Maybe it'll end up becoming harsher before it really starts to iron itself out. But I think we just need to have um, more clarity or more understanding as to why we're getting penalties. We need to have a little bit tightened up penalty system, especially for contact within the game. And last but definitely not least, the last thing I'd like to see edited or changed in Motorsport 8 is the proximity arrows system. For people who use the cockpit view to race, which I think there's probably a fairly substantial amount of people who are going to be using cockpit cam for this game, the proximity arrows do not do enough to show us where people are around us. For people who use third person camera with a controller, this isn't a big issue because they can see around the whole of their car. They can see every angle of their car as they're driving. But for me, I can't see exactly where people are, and the proximity arrows just aren't enough for me to really have a great understanding of where people are around me. Sure, I can bind buttons to my wheel to allow me to look left, right, and behind my car, but still, that isn't always the easiest to do when I am within a battle, when I'm racing. Usually I'm in the middle of a turn before I need to know where people are around me. So I would really like to see a better proximity arrow system, maybe have a radar system instead, similar to how Gran Turismo 7 does it, just so that I can have a better idea of where people are around me. That, though, is really all of the issues that I have with the game. I think overall, like I said at the beginning of this video, I really am loving Motorsport 8. I think it's a huge improvement on Motorsport 7, as well as from the Horizon series where I come from, really. I really love the racing. I really love the multiplayer. I love the single player as well. And I controversial opinion, do like the upgrade system. But there's just, a few things here and there that I would love to see changed. And sure, I could bring up things like PC optimization. I could bring up, the graphics fidelity. I could bring up the lack of tracks or the number of cars in the game or the type of cars that they have in the game. But at the end of the day, I don't really think those are my big issues with the game currently. I just want to see, changes made to provide more replayability and provide ease of access for people in the game. Because right now, I feel like some of the information is just tough to come by or it's hidden behind something that I wouldn't think to look behind. But that's all I have for you guys today. If you like the content that I'm putting out, please feel free to like and subscribe. It really goes a long way to support me and my channel. And as always, if you have any questions, be sure to leave a comment. I will respond to all the comments that I get on all my videos. And I would love to just make this a dialogue for everyone who's getting into Motorsport 8 and racing games as a whole. But anyway, folks, my name is Shim. That's all I've got for you today. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day. Peace.